I spend my life researching and teaching people how to live a powerful life. I am a believer. I stand for the transformation of humanity. I have found my purpose. My name is Gabrielle McGee, and I am the Rebellious Therapist.
So welcome to the Rebellious Therapist Podcast, Season 2, Episode 6. Now, this is a continue on from my last one last week. We talked about red flags last week, and we promised that this week we would talk about yellow and green. So we're going to go through all the different stages as well in this episode of, the new relationship, the stages of yellow flags showing up. Yellow is always a point where it doesn't mean that it is workable, but the chances are that there's something worth in the relationship to work through. So, first of all, I want to say hi to Ciara again. Hi, Ciara.
Hello.
Lovely to see you again, and lovely to know that you're doing so well over in the Hamptons.
Yeah, working through all my yellow and green flags now that I moved in with somebody.
So this is going to be a real value today.
Yeah, 100%. I'll be learning.
Yeah, and it's great because that's what you do. You learn. The more you talk about this stuff, the more even I look at when I'm talking on the podcast and I see stuff for myself. I'm like, oh, tick, tick, tick. Something I've got to go back to, right? So it's
Yeah.
ever changing, forever changing relationships. Always working on it. I'm 20 years in a relationship, so always a moment where that relationship's changing, turning. We're not in the same relationship we were in 10 years ago, and we're definitely not in the same relationship we were when we met. And that's that's one of the big, interesting processes of relationships that you need to be aware of if you really want to work through stuff and figure stuff out. And there's lots of stuff in relationship after 20 years that you need to be able to, you've moved through or you've come to. If you've not ignoring it and just the relationship's dead, then to keep relationships moving, shifting, and working through stuff, you change, they change. So there's a lot going on inside of the process of moving into, the different stages in relationships. But we might talk about that today. We'll see if we've got time, but we're going to talk today about yellow flags.
So what is a yellow flag and what is a green flag before we get into it?
Yeah. And I must say, you're in those early stages where you've just moved in with your relationship. So you're sort of in the negotiation stages of yellow and green. Am I right?
For sure.
Yeah. Cool. So
what is yellow is what you were saying that yellow is something that needs to be flagged but you can work through. And then green is kind of like a reassurance that yes, this works for you.
green is go for it.
Green is
Let's
for it,
go.
and yellow is there's some work to be done.
There's work to be done.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's stuff
so
to figure out.
that. Red is a warning sign. Yellow is there's work to be done there because it could turn red or it could turn green.
Exactly, right? So the yellow has a possibility of going red or green.
Yeah.
Which is a great distinction, right? So it all depends on what the couple want. It all depends on their core beliefs and what they commit to.
Mhm.
And if there's value to work through the issues that yellow flag has brought up,
For sure.
But there's an opportunity at that point
Mhm.
to turn that into green. If you really, if it's something you really want. So yes. So the first part, of that process is falling in love. The easy part.
Stage 1.
It's the easy part because it's a nice part. It's the part where we all want to be, we all want to be in love. We all want that state. We all want the dopamine and the oxytocin and all those beautiful chemicals running through our brain and our body and feeling good every day when we get up and life is so shiny, rosy and beautiful and the sun shines on me and sun shines on my partner and everything's wonderful. And everything that they say, do, and it's all just a very blessed state.
It's the part that we see in movies and then they stop and
Yeah.
say they live happily ever after. And we don't see the happily ever after because
What
the
that
ending,
takes.
and it's like, no, there's so much more to
Oh,
that.
oh my God, that's so such a good distinction, right? And I love watching movies that has
Me
happy
too.
endings, right? And if they don't have happy ends, I get really pissed off at the end. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I don't want to watch that. Why did I watch that? It was a waste of my time. I don't want to accept that life is not wonderful and beautiful and rosy.
Exactly.
So yes. So which part of your relationship are you in now, Ciara?
I would say a bit of stage 1 and stage 2.
Which is lovely.
Like, what?
It's lovely. It's the best
Yeah,
part.
more so moving into stage 2, like, but
Mm.
still the tail end of stage 1.
Yeah, and do you know, I'd always say, with the awareness, always, encourage that stage one to be there.
Yeah,
We don't want to just let it go or, move on really quickly. We can bring it nicely together with, as I say, there's certain issues we have got to work through, but let's keep feeding and growing that part where we're sort of in that bliss stage. How do we move that forward? How do we, continue to let that part of the relationship grow?
yeah. Because you said as well, the falling in love stage, it can last up to 2 years.
Correct.
So be very
Yes.
careful.
And I also said it's not the best time to get married,
Yeah,
but a lot of people get married in those stages, right?
yeah.
I know, and I know, there's times where people get married and then all of a sudden that stage dies nearly overnight. And I don't want to scare everyone who's getting married, but
Yeah,
it's like if you're stuck in that stage and you haven't moved to stage two, then there's some development stages have gone, been a bit stuck,
something's yeah.
right?
So stage 1 is the falling in love, the chemical concoction
Yeah.
in your body that's
Yes.
just driving you
All the nice stuff.
to complete insanity, but in a good way. And then we kind of get it, like you said, we get addicted to that and we want to
Mm,
stay in that. But then stage 2 pops up, which is what you call the power struggle, which I think is really, really good way to put it. And I think another podcast I listened to, they call it the landing in love. So
mm.
you're falling and then you land.
You land somewhere. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's when it's the hardest.
Yeah.
And as well, I think the power struggle part, you don't think you're going to make it, right?
Mm.
So talk to me about the power struggle.
Yes. So the power struggle is when we get into more of a reality and we look at each other with a more sort of without the rosy glasses, right?
Mm,
So then we start, looking at the real stuff, the complexity in the relationship, you know, what his behavior or your behavior looks like and how that matches up on what you agree with and what you don't agree with, right? So it's a stage where there's a lot more groundedness that comes into the relationship, right?
mhm.
And within that, unfortunately, comes with a lot of criticism and there's a lot of stuff where we start picking. It's a picking stage. And we see all the faults that comes in. We see all this niggling things that drives us crazy and, we don't agree with or we get, insulted by. And that just is a stage where, you know, it's a really important stage. It might not be an easy stage. It could be quite, you know, conflicting if you don't know how to navigate yourself in there or you don't know how to communicate. So that stage is the stage where I think it's a great time to do just right before that stage, couple conscious conscious couple counseling relationships, right?
Mhm,
I do a lot of it.
mhm.
So I've got like girls come to me or boys come to me who's looking for a relationship, and then one of the agreements they make for themselves in before they meet the partner that's one of their requirements.
Yeah.
Okay, It saves a lot of hassle and it saves a lot of heartache and problems and difficulties, because this is a very important stage of the relationship, because what happens is you're now training each other how to be in a relationship with each other,
Mhm.
and it's very personalized.
Yeah.
And what happens, the relationship gets lost in there,
Yeah.
and then everything becomes all about us.
Yeah.
So you can see now we have we've taken a turn on the road where we started on a U-turn.
Mhm.
It's really important that you develop how you want the relationship to look going forward.
Yeah.
Now, what I do, if I take a couple to like conscious coupling relationship process, right? What we do is we sit down and each person decides that they're going to work on each other, or sorry, with themselves 100%, and take full responsibility for who they are. So sometimes I ask, the couple to come to different, um, come separately to the session, right? So they've got sessions that they're going to work on their own stuff first. So we delay the actual process of the conversation about the relationship, right? Because if you've got someone who's, got certain things in the way and they don't know that, and they're not getting responsible for that, then we can't go to the next stage of the developing a very powerful process.
Mhm.
It's defining and having distinctions in the relationship that the both couple have agreed to.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of awareness, right?
Yeah. So I can speak to that a little bit about my
Yes,
experience.
absolutely.
I'm stage 1 and stage 2, so I don't know anything about stage 3, 4, and 5 yet. So
Yeah.
I'll speak to what I can speak
Yes, yes,
to.
absolutely.
um, so we started therapy, I'd say 8 months in,
Mhm.
8 to 10 months in maybe,
Yeah.
and we did 5 sessions in total.
Mm.
Not a lot, but
Mhm.
it was definitely a very pivotal moment because
Yeah.
what was happening prior to the therapy was
Mm.
there was just so much miscommunication
Yeah.
with us.
Mm.
It was literally the stupidest things that would turn into the most
Yeah.
like explosive fight
Mm.
kind of. And then my unhealthy the way I would show up then would be big defense mechanism. I would say like things like, I put the relationship on the line then to
Mm.
a certain extent, which isn't healthy either. You
Mhm.
can't threaten the end of our relationship based on such a mini explosive, like a
Yes.
fight.
Yes. So you were
So
acting out basically, Ciara, in
I
the
was acting
relationship.
out,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
looking for a reaction, looking
Yeah.
to make something an issue but not knowing how to mindfully communicate
Mm.
my needs and wants and
Mm.
also hear out his.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, we did like 4 to 5. So that I would say that was the yellow flag
Yeah.
there for me was the miscommunication, the stupid fights. Um, my acting out was a yellow flag because I knew I can do better than that.
Mm.
I'm better than that as a
Yeah.
person.
It's
I've
not
done
who I
enough
am.
work that I
Yeah.
don't need to be falling into
Yeah.
this pattern.
And can I just say something there? And I know I don't want to stop your flow, but I'm not sure if there were stupid fights. I think they were informing you
Yeah,
what
yeah,
is
yeah,
going to
for
be in the
sure.
way. It's like this stuff has to come up to the surface before
Yes,
you even know what's there. So I think it was a really useful process for that relationship.
yeah,
And you were really lucky because your partner, he was so generous and
yeah,
so willing to come in and work with you on the issues and get a communication style up and
yeah,
running. I think
for sure.
that's what saved the day. That's why you're up in the Hamptons right now.
Yeah,
Do you know what
very
I mean?
true. And I think that's really that's so right what you said. But in the moment, what was so confusing for us as a couple was like we would have these conversations before we got to therapy. Why are we having such a stupid fight?
Yeah.
So we were
Where?
minimizing it,
Mm,
thinking that couples shouldn't fight about these sort of things
mm,
this early on in the relationship,
mm-hmm,
not knowing that there's such a gravity to
mm,
that fight that you should like you said,
yeah.
if we had the no, we do have we can see it the way it is now.
Mm-hmm,
That that it's if you're having a stupid fight, it's not a stupid fight.
Yeah.
It's like you said,
It's informative.
it's informative, and
Yeah.
it's bringing up something that doesn't need, like, that needs to be resolved
Yeah.
in order for you to like move to the next stage.
Yeah. Well,
sort of
look,
thing.
now we've got two different opinions at that point, right?
Yeah,
And it's knowing how to navigate those opinions rather than getting
yeah,
locked into, the controlling. Because what happens, you're both trying to control each other, to change
yeah.
each other, right?
That's the power struggle
And
coming
that is
in.
where the power struggle comes in, and that's where all the arguments and the disagreements come. So
Yeah,
if you teach, if that's the process you're teaching each other to communicate from, then that's where all the danger lies, and that's where all the complexity comes into the relationship.
yeah, yeah. So then, what we learned then, which I would say would be a green flag. Obviously, the green flag was actually showing up to therapy together,
Yeah,
and then us both learning how to resolve conflict our own way, like holding space,
yeah,
or like there's certain things that he had to do that he, knew he had to hold back on that wasn't healthy. So
mm.
there's certain things I had to be aware of in myself that I how we resolve, because we're going to have conflict, like that's always going to come
Yeah.
up in a
Conflict's
relationship. It's
healthy,
just how,
right? But
yeah, it's
what we're doing, we're teaching you how to fight.
yeah, teaching, yeah,
Yeah, you
exactly, and
got to
that's
you
what
got
we
to learn how to
learned.
fight in a relationship, right? It's really
So
healthy.
learning how to fight is a green flag,
It's a
everybody.
green flag. Yeah, how mad is that, right?
It's not learning how not to fight, because that
Mm,
doesn't exist.
mm-hmm,
Like we're going to fight and we're going to have conflict. It's learning how to
mm.
powerfully resolve
Yeah,
and navigate
yeah,
conflict.
respectfully.
And
Yeah,
for me, one thing I needed was like what the power struggle that was happening was when we were in conflict, I would shut down,
mm,
and I would shut him down,
mm.
and then he would want to keep coming, coming, coming,
And you
coming,
do that
and
through
it
what?
just
Sulking?
what?
How would you, no, tell the people how you did shut down. You shut down by sulk, like being a sulk or what?
Um, no, it wasn't a sulk. It was like, end this now. Stop talking.
Oh, terminate.
Terminate.
Uh,
I'm done.
oh.
Then when I said that, it meant he came even more at me with so I started to withdraw and he starts to pursue, and this is what we learned in
But
therapy.
also
And then
he now needs to he comes with fight and
yeah,
your flight, right?
yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
He's coming like to fight with thinking that we're going to instantly resolve it
No,
once
I
we
got it.
fight.
Yeah, but that encourages the fight bot, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So that won't, that will just, that's just an automatic then, you know. Then what happens, and this is really important. So you're now starting to become the child in the relationship, and so is he.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he's also acting out his family
Yeah.
systems
Yeah.
and how he behaves and on how that they operate in their process of that type of situation. But you're also acting out your family systems
Yeah.
by, cutting everything down, shutting everything off, and ignore
I
and cry.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So how we kind of navigated that powerfully was that I had to know when I needed space
Mm-hmm.
and ask for it,
Mm-hmm.
and he had to respect that.
Yeah.
But I also had to know not to shut him down,
Yeah.
because if he's coming with something, it's something that he wants
Mm.
aired and wants heard
Mm.
on and wants
Mm.
respected on and
Mm-hmm.
listened on. And for me to shut that down, it's for me to like disrespect him and
Well,
not
if he's not getting heard, right,
yeah,
then it's not getting resolved.
yeah,
But what happens in that moment, you need to remember not to go personal. It's very personal because our nervous system's right through the roof when we're in conflict. But
yeah,
it's learning how to step back. As you said, the greatest thing you did there is just take time out.
yeah,
Let's come back to this.
yeah,
And and then that's where the 100% responsibility lies with each other and working out what's coming up for me. What is this?
mm,
What's happening here? We're just having a discussion about whatever, right? Could be
yeah,
about, money, and money's a big one in relationships to start,
mm-hmm,
because everyone's got a different sort of way of behaving around,
yeah,
finance and stuff. So it's all the stuff that needs evened out
yeah,
and has not been, it's like any business. but at that point, it is actually a business process.
Yeah.
It's like starting up any business. You need to know the rules and regulations for each
Hmm.
for both of you, right? So that would save a lot. No, that's in the ideal world, and that's in the green flag world, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the hard conversations, which we did have to have. We've had hard
Mm,
conversations about money,
yeah.
about can't really think of about our relationship, about our feelings, about what
Mm.
we expect and not
Can I
expect.
just
And
ask you, were they difficult or the hard conversations, or were they important conversations?
they were hard, important
Yeah,
conversations when you're not used to them.
yeah.
This is what I would say is a yellow flag in between
Mm,
stage one and stage two is
mm,
having these hard conversations, the very
mm,
first one. But now we can have them
mm.
and it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
Um, but in that moment, I was like, I can't believe I'm about to be so vulnerable or uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
talking about such a subject with somebody.
Mm.
And that's what it felt like initially. But as time goes on, and as you move into all those
Yeah.
stages, and you, because when you're having these conversations, what's come to the conversation is my perception and my idea of how it should be, and his perception, his idea of how
Yeah.
it should
Totally
be,
two different
and
opinions.
we're
Yeah.
trying to find middle
Yeah.
ground in order for us to move forward
Yeah.
with a kind of collective
Mm-hmm.
strategy, for
Mm-hmm.
example, on money.
Mm.
Um, but now that I understand and know his side
His
and my
belief
side and
systems. Yeah.
how we've met in the
Yeah.
middle, then we can move forward. But initially, they're so uncomfortable. Like,
Yeah.
I remember
Because
crying to you about
yeah.
having to have a conversation about money with him.
Mm-hmm. But do
And
you think that's
I was like,
cultural as well for Irish women?
what?
Do you think Irish girls have that issue? Because I know when I'm talking to Irish girls and I ask them, how much money do you earn? And we have this on the money seminar, right?
Mm,
Or the money podcast. It's so difficult for them to talk about
yeah,
money.
yeah,
It's a really interesting space for, I think, there's no freedom in it. There's shame. There's like a resistance. So
yeah,
I'm wondering, is that more cultural? I'm sure there's, other nationalities have it as well, but we do have it, a very special sort of um, process with money that we're shameful. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to pretend we're earning a lot of money. It's all of those things,
yeah.
right?
Maybe that's yeah. It probably is cultural that we had to like figure
So,
out.
and you're also working through the cultural differences, the diversity
Yeah,
in that culture, because he's
yeah.
American, you are Irish.
Iris.
I have that in my relationship where Marilyn's
Mm,
Persian, but brought up in an Arabic country, so he's very Middle Eastern in what he's being brought up with. And then I've got my Irish sort of belief system over in the other end, and that does take some navigation through the years to figure out what's what here, how does this go? Your belief system's that doesn't align with my belief system, but where do we come in the middle and how do we work this stuff out?
yeah, for sure.
Mm. And that
Yeah,
is the yellow flag stuff, right?
yeah. That became green because we did the work.
Yeah. When yeah.
That could have actually become a red and drove us apart if we didn't,
And it
because we
has
knew
for
it
a
was
lot of
something
people. Yeah,
worth working through.
that has always been an issue, so a lot of people can't get past.
Yeah,
But then there's another part where if his belief system around money was so extreme that you couldn't, there's something just wouldn't have been aligned with you, then that would have been
yeah,
a red flag. And
yeah,
that's where, that's why that part of the relationship, the power struggle is so important for the future tense of that relationship.
yeah. You're having the conversations and doing the work now, so that like the way so that it doesn't become a huge crack later on. Like the
Yeah.
way, as you always say, prevention rather than cure.
Sure, yeah.
Let's get these nitty bitty gritty things out in the air, iron them out so
Yeah.
that it doesn't become like a little crack into a massive
Yeah.
shatter,
Yeah.
which is
A
what
volcano. Yeah.
can happen.
Yeah. Yes. So you can
So
see why,
yeah,
that stage is so valuable, right?
yeah,
And if we learn to navigate ourselves there and we learn to expect that in the relationship, then we won't, it won't be the difficult conversations, it'll be the important conversations. The
hmm
distinction will change and how we approach that. And the
Yeah.
awareness will change, and the education of that, of how to approach that is really important.
Mhm.
Because we're not taught how to do relationships. We're taught
No.
everything but how to love as a human being with other human beings on this planet. We have no idea
Mhm.
until we get, to the crisis point, or we need to figure stuff out.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else do we want to say about that? Anything else?
I think we can probably move on
Yeah,
to
no,
stage
it's like,
3, can we?
I think that's either that in them moments. I think it's either the make or break of any relationship.
Mhm.
It's very easy at that point just to sort of trash it out and move on, but move on to the same stuff. Because if you're not willing to look at yourself and look at you, or you are in a relationship, and look at the difficulties coming up and not have the regulation within yourself to deal with difficulties, then you have an issue. You're moving on and you're taking the same patterns with you.
Yeah.
So it's really important, to even stay and work the stuff out.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you have to stay. It could be a point where, okay, I've learned something here to take forward onto my next relationship. You know,
Yeah. In that, like in the power struggle stage is where
mm,
I learn the most about myself,
yes,
you know?
yeah, through the pain.
Not necessarily
Mm,
about him, but obviously, yeah, as a collaborative effort, I needed
yeah,
to know about him and me, but like me was mostly what I had to work through there,
yeah,
you know?
totally. And he also had to take himself off and work through
Yeah.
his stuff.
And he did.
Yeah, which that's why it works. That's why you've got a future to work with,
Yeah.
something that's grounded in reality
Yeah.
to work through and meet each other and communicate and be generous enough with each other and respectful enough with each other, and the values deep enough there, and the core issues is strong enough for you to move forward.
Mhm. 100%.
Cool. So stage number 3, stability, which I think you're arriving at.
Interesting.
Hmm. So I think from now on in, it's like, confronting each other respectfully,
Yes.
being able to navigate those issues, being able to have the communication styles, being able to, you know, confront the issue rather than the person. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So it's not so personal.
I'm laughing at something because I came to my head. I'll bring it up now.
Yeah.
He's finding himself so obviously we're living together now and
Oh, there's one.
we have to do a weekly shop. He's finding himself so triggered in the supermarket with me.
Oh, actually,
So
actually, if I take my relationship, Mel does all of our um grocery shopping, right? But when I go there, he does trigger me.
yeah.
"Ca- Why are you buying that stuff? Why are you buying stuff?" This is me going through. I don't say anything, but I'm like, and he's like, I'm like,
I think that's me and
yeah,
you're my
yeah,
partner in
yeah,
the relation because I'm like hanging out snacks and he's like, "Do we need that?" And
yeah.
I'm just like throwing it in like,
Mel, he buys stuff, right? And puts it in the drawer. We don't have many people in our house coming to visit because we're so busy, right? Just in case somebody comes to visit. I'm like, we don't have visitors. I don't know why we've got this drawer full of stuff in case they do. I'm like, oh my god,
oh,
it's just all this silly
that came
stuff.
to me there. And I need to bring it up because there's probably something so like it in this. That's probably a part of the power struggle now of us moving in together. Is like grocery shopping is
Yeah.
like can have a trigger moment for somebody. And we
Actually,
end up walking
very
out of the grocery
interesting.
store a little bit like, I just kind of stand back and like, because I know he's triggered, but I need to come in and get my shit anyways. So I just
But you
like,
need your biscuits. I'll tell you what, that's a very interesting point, right? The trigger for me is not big enough to be bothered to even think about it. It just triggers me while I'm there. But most of the time, I'm not in the supermarket with them, so it's fine. So it's not something I want to put the energy into to actually
yeah,
deal with. So it's a really
yeah,
interesting one, but could be a yellow flag, right?
yeah. But it's funny because last summer when we lived together, he did all the grocery shopping and he was fine, and I was fine with it, and he was
Yeah,
fine with it.
Yeah.
And now, since I'm coming along, there's a problem.
It's so funny. Oh my God.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
that's so
Go on,
cool.
anyways.
No, that's a
Commitment
great
and
one.
stability.
That's a great example.
Mm.
And
But I just loved how he came, like, again, what I mean after doing the work
yeah.
in the supermarket, in the grocery store the last day, he said, "I'm just feeling really triggered right now
Mm,
shopping." And he's like, I was like,
exactly.
are you
Perfect.
mad at me?" And he's like, "No, it's not a problem with you. It's with me. I'm feeling very triggered
Wow.
grocery shopping."
Now he's got mastery, right? Now you're in trouble, right? And be careful what you wish for, because you're going to get called out all the time, right? It's not an easy process to send your partner into therapy, because they find out all the nitty gritty stuff, right? And now you've nowhere to
Oh.
hide, and that's where the fun begins. Oh God, brilliant! And also in that moment, what you're learning to do is learning how to negotiate the relationship.
Yeah,
So even though it looks just like the groceries, it's not.
it's not.
It's all about
It's
learning
the
how we
power
negotiate.
struggle.
Yeah, but also the negotiation skill is getting
Yeah.
stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
And the awareness is getting, wider.
Yeah.
How cool. We
So
love
cool.
that. He's a cool guy, right? I hope he listens to this.
I know,
I
so do
know,
I.
Oh, so the next part, right? The next part is commitment. Did we do that one? Am I confused? No. So it's the
No, I
commitment
interrupted
stage.
you, sorry.
Yes, okay. So the commitment stage is where you choose the way it is, but also the way it isn't. Now, what I mean by that is, okay, so this person is the way he is, right? And he's not the way that some of the parts is not the way I want him to be. But if I get to choose that, then I stop the suffering. I stop, having those negative conversations in my head. Choose it powerfully. What does that mean? Okay, he's got his own way of doing that supermarket shop. So when I get to choose that, I can let it go.
Mm.
And that's just a fine little sort of small example what I'm talking about. You know, we use the supermarket because I'm sure that happens quite a bit for people.
Mm.
So when you get to choose powerfully, and that is where the real commitment and stage really is defined powerfully, it doesn't mean that you're choosing to accept something's not working, but you're making a choice to be with the way it is and the way it's not.
Yeah.
Now that
Total
needs defined a
acceptance.
bit more, right? So it's those moments where, Brendan's going to go off and do his supermarket shopping the way Brendan does his supermarket shopping, right? And if you go there with him, then there might be a bit of to choose. Well, we might have to negotiate in here, to be mindful of that and work that through.
Yeah.
Then we're on the road where we're really getting to a point where we're leaving down the roots.
Yeah.
And what's important also, what I want to say, if you're not working and having the roots strong enough, when the difficulties and the troubles as life gives you shows up, then you have no base to work stuff through in life.
Mhm.
And life does throw curveballs.
Mhm.
And there, that's when you need to put the processes in place and, have them very strongly, and the clarity of how we are working through our difficulties, and not just with difficulties in the relationship, but difficulties with life. And that's when the partnership is really important, when you've got each other back.
For sure.
So I'm so looking forward to see that process for you.
Me too. It's funny.
Yeah,
It's funny
that's
when you can
great.
like look.
Yeah, that's great. So Then there's the bliss stage, where you learn to dance through all those different stages, right? Stage 5. So there's moments where you could be at stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. But when you really don't know, when it's a process, just learn to dance with it, then you're in the bliss stage of the relationship. Now, we've gone through sort of yellow flags, but we also touched on the green flags. And I just want to say something quickly about the green flags. The green flag for me is when the person is 100% working through all of their childhood issues, all of the process that they go into relationships with that doesn't work, and they're really 100% responsible in that. That's for both ends, both couples, that they both take themselves off and they are responsible 100% for their life and their behavior. And then we've got the part in the middle where the relationship lies. So you, Ciara, now are 100% responsible for that relationship. But also Brendan is also 100% responsible for that relationship.
Yeah.
And it's the identity of the relationship you are focused on, not yourselves.
Mm.
And what happens in that is that relationship can be any way it wants. It's the agreement and the declaration that both couples made at the start, that what's important to both, and they're in agreement. So everything that comes up inside of that doesn't work for that, or is not committed to the process or the rules and regulations inside that declaration, then that is where each person has to get 100% responsible for working that stuff through. That is the perfect relationship. Now, that's something we need to be taught. That's when you do go for the conscious coupling therapy. And a lot of times I get the couple to decide what do they want, what's their belief system, to build the belief system values into the relationship where they both agree to. They sign it off, they put it up on the wall, it can go up in the kitchen wall, and it's something that is a declaration that you're committed to. And when things get tough, rough, or whatever it looks like, you bring yourself back to your commitment.
Yes, I like that.
So I hope this has been of great value for anyone who's in a relationship or who is thinking about getting into a relationship. Going forward, I want to say thank you for listening. We've enjoyed the whole process of talking about relationships and flags, and we've seen a lot for ourselves inside these two episodes. And yeah, so just keep giving us feedback, and thank you for listening. And until we meet again.
Yes,
Bye.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Rebellious Therapist podcast. For more information, you can follow me, the Rebellious Therapist, on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. You can find further information on my website, therebellioustherapist.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.